We're here with Oklahoma State men's and women's coach Dave Smith, doing pretty good on both the men's and women's side. Runner-up finish for Taylor Rowe on the women's side, and the men getting that third place trophy. Overall, what'd you think of Monday for you as a coach, for your athletes, just the whole day, the whole experience?
Yeah, it was a weird spot for me to be in because, I'm coaching a men's team. I want to do well. A women's team I got big hopes for. We're hosting the meet, and I take a lot of pride in how it was going to look and how other people were going to think about it. We designed a new course, which I oversaw and planned and had a huge hand in. So that's kind of like your own child, that you can see some flaws in it and you can discuss them. But when someone else says something about those flaws, those are fighting words, So there was that stress. And then I'm also on the NCAA committee, which is in charge of putting on the championship from an NCAA. So it's just like, and thankfully on that side of things, Jeff Malinsky just kind of freed me up to do the hosting duties I had and coach my own teams. But they're from so many different angles. I had so many different perspectives on why I really wanted this to go well and why I was emotionally invested in it. Exhausted when it was all said and done, because you just so many things. Felt like there was a juggling, keeping everything in the air. And the most important thing, of course, are my own teams. And sometimes I felt like they weren't getting the attention from me over the last 2 weeks that they should have. Maybe that's why I think we ran well, that they weren't hearing from me every day. And it wasn't being, driven home. We got to do it. We got to do it. We got to do it. And they kind of just took the reins and took care of business without much direction from me at all, especially in the last 48 hours. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I was pretty happy with it from all perspectives.
A lot of the hype going into this meet was around, again, a phone call. I declined this. Okay. My brother. A lot of the hype was around the difficulty of the course. Yeah. And we saw a lot of that in that first race on the women's side, where we saw some carnage in that final 1K. What was great? What, in your mind, what was great about it, the course not being a simple track type cross-country loop?
I think, sometimes there's a difference between a good cross-country runner and a good track runner. And some people cross over those two venues very well, but some don't. And this course is one of those courses that will exploit and illustrate those differences. I think there's a strategy to cross-country running. If it's a real cross-country course, not just a grass track, there's strategy to it. There's nuance to it. There's times when you can press and times when you shouldn't. Ultimately you want to kind of maintain a consistent effort throughout the course. But when you're going up and down and your paces are changing, it's hard to manage the effort and think, I want the effort the same, and I can ignore the pacing, right? When I'm going up, I'm going to be a lot slower, but my effort should be the same as when I'm going down. I think that's kind of what we'd aim for, but it's hard to psychologically do that when you get ripping down hills and then you want to keep that momentum going forward. And, all old sayings are, drive up the hill, do as best you can, power up these hills. Maybe that's not the best approach. So I like the fact that there's some strategy to it. I saw, I think the team that handled this absolutely the best of anybody was Michigan State women. Just took a big gamble, a big risk, and said, let's go out and dead last and run conservatively and see where we can get. And man, that's nerve-wracking. It's stressful. You got to have a lot of confidence to run that way and think it's okay. We're going to be okay in the end. And watching them move through the field, that was a brilliant race in my mind. I mean, they hit the strategy of this course better than anybody, including my men's or women's teams or our individuals. I thought they did a fantastic job.
Yeah. Was there anything that, because it's your home course, it's where you practice, pretty much every divot in the 10K, 6K kilometer course?
There aren't divots.
No divots. Okay. Sorry. No divots. Was there any inside secret race strategy that you gave your men and women that you think paid off for them?
I think just, there's two things. One is the course itself. Two is being in the national championships. And those are two different things that we had to deal with. Okay. I think for the course itself, yes, we knew how to run it. We knew how it ran on a tempo run. We knew how it ran when you run 1,000, stop and rest for 3 minutes and run 1,000 stuff. But that's not what the race is, right? That's a little different. I think just respecting the course enough without being afraid of it. I think you run it once, maybe you get a little fear factor in there. You run it not at all. You might not respect it, but having several attempts at it, you start to respect it, not fear it. And like the Michigan State women, I think my men's team did a pretty good job of saying, hey, this is the effort we need to run. If we're running sub 5 minute pace, it's going to be a really good day. But we don't have to try to go out and run 4:30s. Let's just be patient, not panic, and see if we can save some running for the second half. And I think I had a group of guys, three or four guys that did that really, really well. And we kind of moved up through the field and kind of did a good job. So that was probably our advantage, is just, knowing that, hey, there's a long way to go when you get to 8K. There's still a long way to go in this race, and a lot could change. And our guys, a lot changed in the last 3 or 4K for us. So.
Oh, there you go. A little technical difficulty there with the phone. So a lot of some of your guys on your roster, some of the names like Isai Rodriguez. We know Ryan Smeaton has run well in the steeple, but a lot of the core of your team is in the younger range, sophomores, freshmen. What is it about these guys that was able for them to develop so quickly and be a part of a championship caliber roster within year 1 or 2?
Well, number one, 2 things you just said: Isai Rodriguez and Ryan Smeaton. Isai is fearless. I mean, he's in a way a lot like Connor Mance. Connor Mance has developed and gotten ahead of Isai, but at one time they're pretty similar. But it's their attitude is very similar. Isai isn't afraid of he isn't afraid of pace. He isn't afraid of going out too hard. He just wants to race, and that fearlessness is something that's hard to find in people. Most distance runners have some anxiety and some fear of every race, and there's always this, well, coach, I'm ready to run, but just let you know I had a stomachache last night. Okay, why do I need to know that? Well, just in case I don't run well. Well, okay, but there's this kind of anxiety a lot of runners have. Isai has never had a second of that in his life. He can take 3 weeks off, not training, in a boot, and come out and say, I'm going to run, I'm going to go with the best. And I'll try to talk some sense into him sometimes, and I can't, thank God, because he just has this extreme confidence. So that is starting to become contagious. I think some of our team sees that. On the other side, we've got Ryan Smeaton, who is very analytical, but he's also very calm, never gets too high, never gets too low, just is very steady and even keeled emotionally, just kind of the opposite of Isai, who's just kind of an emotional whirlwind. I mean, that guy just comes in with a bundle of energy. Ryan is very calming. Those 2 leaders kind of worked really, really well for our team, and kind of, I think, just with a perfect blend into sort of creating this chemistry and culture and team identity of just being tough, gritty, kind of let's not be afraid of it. Let's just get out and get to work, blue collar kind of guys. And we all throw around this blue collar term. It used to be something unique, and now it's just cliche. We all say, oh, we're the blue collar team. But really, I think that if our team had an identity this year, it's this blue collar, gritty, hey, we're going to run hard, do the best we can, and the chips fall where they may. And that's what you need in that championship setting.
It was a unique season, obviously, with COVID protocols, and you guys had your Big 12 championship months before the national championship. Hopefully, fingers crossed, going into next year, it'll be a little normal and we'll have a typical fall season. What do you think is the ceiling for this crew? Is everyone coming back, first of all? Because I know this year doesn't count towards eligibility, but what do you think is the ceiling for the 2021 version of the Cowboys?
Well, everybody's coming back, and I think the thing where we can get better, a lot better, is we were relying on, not relying, but a couple freshmen in our top 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually had 3 or 4 or 5 of them. And, some people handle their first shot at the NCAA championships pretty well. But a lot of freshmen, I think you look through those results, there's a lot of good freshmen, both men and women, who maybe a lot of people had expectations these guys are going to go, or gals are going to tear this up, who struggled and had hard days. I think the emotion and the energy and the kind of vibration of the field that's there that you cannot practice. You can run thousands to the puke and practice, but you can't create that emotional, just that energy and that vibration. Like I said, it's there. It's a real thing. The first time you experience it, man, it can really throw you off. We had a young lady who's been running as her 1, 2, or 3 all year who was almost last yesterday. Okay. And it wasn't that she wasn't fit. She won the Big 12 3K 10 days ago. I think it was her first time in this setting, and it's really hard to deal with. Ryan Shoppy's a guy on our men's team who's been in our top 4 or 5 all year. He was, well over 200 yesterday, I think. I don't know exactly where. He was not anywhere close to helping us scoring. And it's not that he's not fit. It's not that he's not good. It's not that he's not going to be good. It's just that first time through. So where we're going to get better is all those freshmen are now going to be sophomores. And it's, a sophomore becoming a junior becoming a senior. You don't often get that same bump that you do from the freshman to sophomore year. So I think we can get a little better with some of our freshmen. I also think we're adding a couple guys that are, transfers, that are guys that have been proven to be pretty good already. that could make us better, just some instant offense. I think they come in and make us a little better right away. And then we've got some young guys coming in again who will be freshmen, and probably those guys aren't going to help our team next year, but I can't tell them that because they think they're going to. So, so where do we get better? I think freshmen becoming sophomores and a couple transfer guys who are already proven guys are going to come in and help us a little bit too.
What's kind of been the ability to kind of, I remember, the Colby Lowe days of German Fernandez and that run you had for 3 to 4 years. And then kind of you're becoming more of like a top 20 team as opposed to a top 4 team. This performance kind of leapfrogs you back into that conversation as being a consistent top 4 team. What is different? And what was the trigger that kind of caused you to kind of get back into the mode of what you were like 6-7 years ago?
Well, back then it all started with a guy named Bale, who we got from Portland, who was that same gritty, blue collar, get to work, not heavily recruited kind of guy that came with this chip on his shoulder and wanted to prove to everybody who didn't make an offer to him that they should have. And Bale was a multi-time All-American for us. He was that leader that I could take the young German Fernandez, Colby Lowe, John Zablaski, all those guys, Tom Farrell's, and say, hey, get in this race and run with Bale. And you may be better than he is, but he's better than you at kind of managing himself throughout the race. He's a veteran, knows how to do this. He can chaperone you to where you need to be. And the last couple K, you can do your thing, be you. And that was, again, incredibly helpful to have someone with that steadying influence, just to kind of say, hey, let me do the thinking and the stressing, the worrying. You just follow me. And I'm wearing bright orange. You can't miss me, And those kinds of things were really good. His attitude kind of shaped our team for not only the 3 or 4 or 5 years he was a contributor here, but probably 3 or 4 years after he left. And then we had a period we sort of lost some of that grit and that blue collar attitude. I think we got to thinking we deserved to be on the trophy stand because we just showed up wearing orange. I think we had some kind of entitlement almost, it was just kind of this, there was lack of the awareness of what it took to get there the first time. And pretty soon, Jerry Schumacher has a thing he used to always tell me that, the Grand Canyon started as a drop of water on a high plain, and everybody thought it wasn't a big deal because it was just one drop of water, right? But eventually it becomes the Grand Canyon. And that's the way teams erode as well. Little things you start thinking, oh, that's not a big deal. We're not pushing those. We're not, being as tight as we used to be in terms of who we are and what we want to do. The attitude's slipping a little bit. Eventually you wake up and you go, oh my God, I'm in the middle of the Grand Canyon. How'd that happen? And that's kind of where we found our team. And it's no one person's fault other than maybe me just kind of relaxing and not noticing when it's happening. And then recently we've got, like I said, a group of guys that have been willing to get back to that state. And I think Alex Mayer is a brilliant guy who's a blue collar, hardworking, I'm going to think my way and I'm going to logic my way into being an All-American. I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to become great. Maybe he doesn't have the flashy track times that everybody looks for, but he's a really smart guy who's willing to work and grind and just do what it takes. Ryan Smeaton's the same way. Isai Rodriguez, Shoppy's the same way. Jonas Price, some of the young guys. We've got a crew of guys now that all kind of have that it factor, that grit factor, that I think that's what's different. It's my workout plans have not changed. What we do is almost identical to what we were doing 20 years ago and everything in between. Little tweaks here and there, but it's almost the same. So it's really more about identity and character and who the guys are on the team.
This is very typical of what I always do is the entire time leading up to a race, I'm thinking about who's going to win second, third, and projecting. And then as soon as it's over, I already start thinking, all right, who's going to win next year and projecting. And a lot of times it's easy to think about the next year because you're like, all right, let's remove all the seniors. Yeah. But next year is going to be a unique year where most seniors are all going to be back.
Yeah.
What do you think the 2021 championship is going to look like? A year where basically everyone who ran this year will just be there again.
We're just rerunning the same race, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing I know about teams, and so therefore championship races, is that every year, every team is different. It doesn't matter if it's the exact same individuals. It's a different team, a different year, a different set of emotional circumstances, personal circumstances, life circumstances. Everything's changing. And especially for people 18 to 23 years old, things are changing constantly, and what's important and what's valuable to them, what they want, what they need, what they're willing to fight for. That's a constantly changing thing, and it's evolving over time. And so even though we're going to, I'll tell you this, in 2010, we won by 120 points. We brought back our entire lineup and we added Shadrach Kipchirchir, who transferred from Western Kentucky after he just finished 27th at the national championships. So in theory, that team was bulletproof, untouchable, cannot lose. And we got beat by 50 points from a Wisconsin team that really had 5 guys at the start of the year. And everybody said, well, they've only got 5 guys that can do it. One of them's going to go down. They can't win. But those 5 guys got it done, right? And I probably had 2 teams that I could have split them and finished 2 teams in the top 10 that year. But we couldn't find one team to beat those 5 guys from Wisconsin. And so I learned that year that nothing's a given. You know, I returned the entire same team that won by 120 and we lost by 50 or whatever it was. So, you know, I think, you know, the pressure's all on Mike Smith and the NAU Lumberjacks, right? They just won. They're invincible. They cannot lose next year. So what can they do that's good? What can they do to surprise people, to be, man, they did it. Like this year, they got to come back and, you know, it was a great story. They got to reclaim the throne and they got to go against their, you know, their arch enemy BYU and in a showdown out in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And it was a great story. And if they get it done, think, man, we did it. But next year, there's nothing they can do that impresses anybody. What are they going to do? Go 1 through 5? I mean, that would impress people. But other than that, all they can do now is fail. They can only fail. If they win, they didn't win by enough. If they don't put 5 in the top 15, why didn't they? Right? If they get second, oh my God, what happened? And I am putting the hex on them right now. And they're going to see this. They know. No, but you know, it's hard. And that's why what they've done over the last 5 years is absolutely incredible. The fact that they can come back year after year after year and be right back in the mix, even though that big target's on their back. BYU found out this year. It's really hard when you're carrying that target around. You don't know what it is until you go through it and you get done and think, what the hell just happened? And you start to think, man, what did happen? Well, we carried this, you know, 10-ton target on our back the entire way. That's a heavy thing to carry. So it's really, really, really hard to repeat. That's why there's so few strings of multiple championships like NAU has put together over the last 5 years. It's rare, right? It doesn't happen very often. So
you've seen your fair share of phenomenal distance athletes come and go through the NCAA system on your team and on other people's teams. I'm looking towards this outdoor season, and the men's outdoor 5K is very intriguing to me because you're going to have Edwin Kurgat, who's the defending champion from Cross last year. Kiptu just ran defeats the indoor champion. Cooper Tier, who's running phenomenal. You have Mance, who just won. You have Isai, who's one of the top guys. Then Grijalva, who has the fastest time. All these people who kind of were spread out in a weird way this winter are all going to be clashing in the same race.
Yeah.
Who taking out Isai because he's, you know, in contention with them.
Yeah.
What do you think is the pecking order right now for best 5K distance runner right now?
So everybody wants to get excited about track times, and everybody wants to get excited about time trials. And most of what we're doing these days are time trials. It's like, oh, guys, let's all get in line. We're going to run great, and we'll kick at the end. We'll call it a race. But there's not the stress and, again, the emotional baggage you're carrying when you're trying to win a race. That's different. And so all these time trialers, like people are saying this team's going to be great because they had 7 guys do this. This team's going to be great because they had 5 guys do this. I kept thinking, that's time trials. That ain't racing. You know, we're about to race. Let's see who can race. And from my mind right now, if I had to pick one guy, and I can't believe I'm going to say this because you guys have been saying it forever, and I always think it just can't be, but the one guy out there that can race and knows how to do it is who? Who's the racer? Who's the guy that always shows up and doesn't matter what the pressure is?
Mance.
Mance.
Yeah.
That guy is unbelievable. I can't figure that. I mean, how does he do what he does? He's unbelievable. He was on the ropes, taking haymakers to the head in the middle of the race yesterday. He was going down for the count. And we were all standing around going, oh, Mance bit off more than he can chew. And he's 7 seconds down and it's getting bad. And somehow that guy's Rocky. He gets up off the canvas. He's pulling himself up. They're counting him down for the count. He goes, 7, 8. He's like, that's strong enough. And he gets back up. And then somehow he rallies and gets back in the race and then dominates the race. You know, that guy to me scares the hell out of me. And I don't know how he does it. You know, if you were picking a lineup, that's not the guy you're going to pick just on, you know, I don't know, just whatever it is. He's got some intangible that you just can't put into his track PR or his mile PR or his height or his weight or whatever, you know. It's something in him that is just magic. And there's several guys like that. But maybe it's because I watched it yesterday and I just watched him get off the canvas and think, my God, who is this guy? You know? So, and I recruited the guy, so I've known him a long time. I like him a lot. I kind of, you know, root for him when he's not kicking our asses. But, I watched that yesterday. I think, man, how are you going to beat that guy? You can't knock him out. He just takes body blow after body blow after body blow, and he doesn't go down. Or he does go down, he gets right back up. So he's good. I think you touched on the two guys at Iowa State. Those guys are training together, and I bet you they show up in Eugene breathing fire. And those are two scary dudes as well. Grijalva, that guy is pure butter. When you watch him run, just smooth as silk, looks great, just not a hitch in his giddy up anywhere. You watch him, and then that's beautiful. That's beauty. That's poetry in motion. You watch him run. So Nico Young, the young bucks out there making waves. I don't know. Like you, it's hard to. Who would you pick right now? If I had to take one guy, I feel like taking Mance, just because I've always not chosen Mance. And man, the guy he can do it. So I like that. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
So now that you've pulled off a cross country meet at nationals, this is always your dream, and it happened. What's next for Oklahoma State? Like, what's the next dream? What's the next goal? Like, where do you go from here?
We got to win next year. That's the deal. We got to figure it out. We got to figure out how to beat NAU and BYU and Notre Dame team that had, an awesome day, kind of slipped under. They had, they ran well in the fall. And I think they in my mind, they didn't have a great ACC meet. I know they won it, but I saw that there's some vulnerability there. And I thought, man, these guys, they think they're great, but they're overselling themselves. And then I had a conversation with Sean Carlson. And one of the first things he said to me is, man, we just didn't have a very good ACC meet. Damn it, he knows. So, and whatever they did, they righted the ship, and they stormed the castle yesterday and looked great doing it. So got to figure out a way to beat those guys. And BYU is not going away. And the Stanford guys had some really young guys do some amazing things yesterday in their first championship. So, man, there's a lot of good teams out there, but we got to figure out a way to get to the top of that heat.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. One other thing, Taylor Rowe, runner-up finish. She's kind of a little bit of an up and down cross-country season. She ran well back in OK State invite, but then kind of wasn't like running away with it. But what were your thoughts overall on how she performed, and what her future is?
In the fall, she lost to Kaylee Logue twice. She lost to Whitney Orton. Went with her till 400 to go, and Whitney got away. And then in the spring, really, she ran better. She went to to FSU. The big meet was fourth, but like 2 seconds off the win. And she lost by 1/10 of a second or so to Kaylee Logue. She lost to Ella Donahue by a second or two. She was right in it, right? And couldn't quite finish it off. And then she ran some good track times. She went, 4:39 our mile opener. She split 4:33 twice for us, including at the national meet on Friday. Split 4:33, one of the faster splits of the day. She won our conference meet. She closed in 2:10 in the mile. Her last 800 was in two. Just kind of jogged around and closed in 2:10. She does good things. The only kind of soft spot in her armor is we ran that race against Tulsa, and it was a 75-degree day, and she was well in front with 200 to go, and then got the wall. Kind of looked like the national meet. All of a sudden, she had the wobbles, and she was going to go down, and we got her kept her on her feet, and she had to walk the last 80 meters just to get there, because if she tried to run, she was going to go down. And we needed to stay in front of Tulsa to make sure we got to the championships. And so I'm just standing up there screaming, just walk. And she's walking all wobbly leg for 80 meters, just walk a couple steps, tilt over, walk a couple steps, tilt the other way, and got across. And I thought, man, I hope this isn't the beginning of the end. This could be kind of hard psychologically. But we had the Big 12 championships 3 days later, and she said, I'm running Big 12s. I was like, well, Taylor, let's think about this. Maybe that's not the good idea. We need you ready for nationals. She says, I'll be ready. And she went to Big 12s and had a great meet. She, anchored her DMR to second, then came back the next day and won the mile, and then routed the slow heat of the 3K, where we had, Gabby Hentemann ended up winning out of the slow heat because Taylor kind of routed her along for 2K at 8:20 pace or 9:20 pace or whatever. So she really had a really, really good year, quietly off the radar.
Yeah, I guess my last memory was that Tulsa, Oklahoma State meet. I was like, falling off. Like normally you think it'd be at the top, but second place. I was home course advantage, right? You could say she knew what that last K was going to be like and was able to, because there were some people in that front pack that just fell off in that final K.
I wish it was home course advantage, because then we would have run a lot better on the. We had some women struggling. I think, again, you can't prepare for what that feels like, that pressure and stress and the excitement, the energy. It's loud, man. It's just overwhelming inside your head. And we had a couple kids struggle with that, both men and women. But I think Taylor just ran an incredibly mature race. And for a sophomore who struggled last year, last year she dropped out of regionals on our course and probably cost us a chance to go to nationals. And she was carrying that around for a year, thinking, I let the team down, I let the team down, I let the team down. Even though I told her, hey, the team wanted to go, the team could run faster. Yeah, you were part of it, but anybody could have picked up the bags and run with them. I mean, someone could, Taylor fumbled the ball, let me pick it up and go. No one did, so we didn't go to nationals. So I don't ever blame one person. But she kind of felt that way. And so to kind of rebound this year and just be on point all year long to save her best day for the last day, I thought was, she looked like a fifth-year senior, not a true sophomore. So I was really, really impressed and proud of her.
Well, Dave, I appreciate you taking the time 24 hours after a great day in Stillwater. Wish I could have been there. I saw it was windy. I saw they got some fans there, so it wasn't too you were able to get a little semblance of a typical cross-country.
Yes, some of those shoots, like the finish 200 was pretty packed with people. There's some places out in the finger loops that were pretty loud, and I think we got about 1,500 to 2,000 people there, even with limiting it down to just minimal. Friends and family. I think in 2 years we could have 4 or 5 times that number out there, and I think it'll be a great situation.
Well, we look forward to it. I'll get to be actually there and not watching through a computer screen. So thanks a lot, Dave, and best of luck outdoor track season.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Gordon.